Toastmaster of the day and fellow Toastmasters. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
About a month ago, one of our fellow Toastmasters, Gail, gave this wonderful speech on impromptu speaking. And in that speech, she shared the terror she feels when she's called upon for table topics. Now, I wasn't here for that speech, but thanks to Dr. Dubin's website, I was able to watch it at home. And I remember thinking, I too get that sense of terror when I'm called upon for table topics. Now, Gail gave her purpose, and the purpose of her speech, and I quote, was to convince you that all good speeches require some time to prepare. And she went on to eloquently share with you 3 points to support that. The other thing that she did was she said, I want to hear your views. I want to hear my fellow Toastmasters' views. So tonight you get to hear mine. I'm going to recap her 3 points. I'm going to let you know what I think about them. And I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to give some suggestions. So the first point that was made, and I quote, impromptu speeches are the most difficult speeches to give. And I'm going to have to say I agree with that. There was a study that was done years ago, and 46% of the respondents said that public speaking was their #1 fear. And that compared to 19% who said death. So I think we can all agree that public speaking in general is fearful for many people. Now you add to that the element of surprise that is impromptu speaking, otherwise known as table topics, where you're given a topic in the moment, you haven't gotten a chance to prepare. Many times you don't even have an opinion, you may not even be familiar, but you're expected to respond in the moment and respond in a coherent manner. And as if that's not difficult enough, there's usually someone over there somewhere who's counting your ahs and your ums. You're going to make many because you're nervous, and then they charge you for it. And there's usually someone in the back. They're flashing colored cards at you. So you're acutely aware that there's a time constraint involved. And as if that's not enough, you have your fellow Toastmasters. And they're watching your every movement and listening to your every word. Now, if that's not difficult, I don't know what is. So I agree that impromptu speeches are difficult to give. The second point that was made, and again I'll quote, rarely are we asked to deliver a speech without warning. I'm actually going to have to disagree with this. I'm convinced that the vast majority of speeches that we give on a daily basis are impromptu speeches. We don't think about them that way because they're dressed a little differently. We call them by a different name. We call them conversation. But unless you're walking around ahead of time knowing the content of your conversations and having prepared response, the truth is when someone asks your opinion on something and you open your mouth to respond in that moment, you're giving an impromptu speech. It may be to an audience of one, but it's still an impromptu speech by definition. So I think we actually do it all the time. The third point that was made, and again I'll quote, some time is needed to organize your thought. And the suggestion that was made, and it's a valid one, is maybe we can get the questions ahead of time to prepare. Take away that element of surprise, the thing that terrifies us. And again, I have to disagree with this approach. And I disagree for 3 reasons. The first one I already alluded to. Impromptu speaking is not a rare thing. We do it all the time. The second reason, I actually think there's some value to be gained from learning to do impromptu speech as well. I think you can learn to be quick on your feet. You can learn that in the moment you can organize your thoughts and express those thoughts coherently. I think you can also learn that even when you're given a topic that you're not familiar with, you can respond in an intelligent manner. And I think regardless of where you are in life, these are really good skills to have. The third reason I don't think we should be given the questions ahead of time, and I actually think this is the most important reason, I think impromptu speaking skills can be learned. I think you learn them with practice. I think practice comes with doing them in things like table topics. So if you take away that opportunity to practice, you'll take away the opportunity to learn the skill that we do so often. What I think we should do instead, maybe we should try not to change it. Let's try to change how we view it and how we think about it. I think maybe we should look at ways we can improve ourselves so we can get better at impromptu speaking. As Gail mentioned in her speech, and I agree with this, there are people in this room who are excellent at impromptu speaking. Maybe we can learn from them. Maybe we can read and keep abreast of current events so that we can preempt some of the topics that may show up. Maybe we can, talk to the Vice President of Education so we can get an impromptu speaking skill workshop done. Whatever we do, we should not get rid of the questions ahead of time. I agree that impromptu speaking is difficult. It's uncomfortable. It's even a little terrifying. I agree, because I feel that way when I'm called. But every so often, when I stumble upon something that's challenging, I remember this quote. It's a quote by Michael Jordan, and it says, "If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, how to go through it, how to walk around it." I say, let us figure out how to climb this wall that is impromptu speaking. Let us not walk away and give up because it's difficult.